So, what is the future of live stream now post COVID? So, today I'm here with Celia Werner from Celia Werner Productions. And can you, real quick, just give yourself an introduction, talk a little bit about your background to the audience?
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
Yeah.
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 So my name is Celia Werner, and I do photo, video, live stream, content, consulting, anything that revolves around social media content, and beyond. I got into this about 10 years ago. I started in events doing sweet 16s, weddings, things along those lines. And I started getting into more and more corporate. And that in turn led to a couple of internships during college at places like Nick Jr. and Fox News Radio and a couple of small production companies. And then after that, I worked in reality TV. And then one day I came into work and they said, we'll pay you through Friday. The network pulled the plug and I went freelance. So from there on out, I worked with some broadcast companies doing live stream pre-pandemic. And then once the pandemic hit, I was continuing on my way doing that as well as other video content. So I have had Celia Werner Productions for about 10 years now and was doing stuff on the side before, that network pulled the plug. And then I went full-time freelance from there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, I know from our previous conversations, and we met not too long ago, but you've been such a great supporter and just colleague. And as we were making our starts, because we're pretty young relative to you, and you've made quite a name for yourself on the island, and I love always seeing your content. And usually you're in my position right now with because I know you've done a couple different podcasts in the past, and now you have, I believe it's Clarity, right? Clarity Workshop
Yes.
podcast. Yes.
Which is also CWP, like Celia Werner Productions.
Yes. I saw that.
I was stuck on a name and I was like, what do I do? What am I going to do? I don't want to put my name in it because I did that with the last podcast. And by the end of it, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I got you.
This is revolving around me.
Yeah.
So, Clarity Workshop podcast.
Yeah, no, and that's also I heard the first episode. It was great, and but yeah, and you have such a big broadcasting background. Like you just went through a little bit of it, and with live streaming and everything. And I see you work with a lot of music artists as well doing that. Um, so right now, what can you speak a little bit about what you've been seeing as far as like the live stream market and broadcasting now, and especially maybe a little bit of how you saw it happening during COVID and now how you see things. Do you see a shift? Do you see it rising, falling? Yeah, just speak a little to that.
So I'm going to start a little before COVID.
Yeah.
Because I started learning broadcast before everything basically hit the fan with COVID.
Yeah.
So I started learning about that because I was one of 3 kids in college that was interested in actually the tech part of everything. I went to Hofstra University and we have the giant studios there and everything's wired into the building. But most of the students are like, I want to use the camera or oh, I really like audio. But I was jumping in on the tech end with routing and figuring out things and doing live streams before live streams were live streams. And that was in, I would say 2013, 14, 15, where I was learning all of that. And at that time, the technology wasn't where it is now. So getting in front of the curve for that really helped for when I dived into it when I started doing freelance. When I started doing freelance, I was working with a company called Metro Media Broadcasting. There's a connection there.
I see that. Maybe.
So what we were doing is as the technology was coming out, we were figuring out the different uses and the different tech that actually works well together. And the guy that owns that company, his name is Brad. He was at NBC forever. So he was a camera guy. He has shot everything from homicide scenes to off the side of a helicopter to all of the scenarios that could be there. So he is a veteran in the industry and he's based out of Philadelphia. So I was helping him out on all sorts of shoots for when he would come up to New York, or I would fly with him to other states and we would be doing these live streams for mostly corporate. But we also did things we did a Pitbull concert, and we did like all these different cool events for like USA Soccer, and like, you know, we were figuring out how we can bring those events to people at home. So within that, I learned more of the broadcast engineering side than I even knew. So when the pandemic did hit, I knew right away. I was like, I need to buy gear. Like, I need to, like, before things shut down.
Yeah.
So I bought like camcorders, I bought capture cards, I bought all of those things at the beginning.
So you
And
already had a sense like, oh, this is where everything's about to take a big pivot to.
I mean, if you think about it, like that's the first thing to go, in-person events. So if in-person events go, then what are people going to do? And I was pretty on the money with that. In addition to having my podcast, which I thought it would be a good idea to have a podcast that someone doing live stream is doing a live stream podcast. It didn't work that way. It worked really well for networking, but like, you know, that's besides the point. But
not really a marketing point.
no, it was an idea. It did not pan out how I wanted, but it did get me where I am now because of the networking.
You wouldn't know unless you tried, right?
Exactly. But I bought all of that gear because, you know, what was coming up? Graduations were coming up and like different events. And like one of the big things that people didn't really think about is there was a lot of government that needed live stream during that time. I didn't personally do it, but a lot of people I know did. So when I jumped on that, like, you know, you saw the shift. And you also saw like the people trying to like makeshift it and the developments in things like Instagram and Facebook and all of those lives. So I know, at least in my circle of people, a lot of musicians started live streaming, and that led to me working with Statfest, which is a local Long Island music fest group that we did a couple of online concerts, which were really cool. We did their first virtual Statfest, and then their second one was at West Industry Studios. And then we also live streamed Statfest that year. So it was something that kind of developed and grew. But I feel like with it growing, there was also a dip, if that makes sense. So like people were getting sick of live stream. Yeah. So it kind of like had a grow and then it had a drop, and now
there was
it's kind
Zoom,
of back again.
They had a word for it, like Zoom fatigue or something like that. Remember that
exactly.
term? Yeah, that was going on.
I remember I developed TMJ. I was on there, so many Zoom meetings and so many podcasts, and I was just like, I have to be all smiley. I'm the host. Oh yeah, I want to do business with you. I need to.
You never realize how hyper focused people can be on your video screen versus like in person stuff.
Well, I feel like when you're on something, and even on something like this, you're concentrating. You're like, I have to look composed. I need to have a smile. I need to look like I'm a good participant in this conversation instead of being like real. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people went through that during the pandemic because one, lives, but also because there's that perception online that you have to be perfect. You don't 100%. Have to be perfect. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Trust me, no one's actually staring at you the entire time.
Probably not. Yeah. You know, they have like, you know, the internet screen to the left and they're not really listening. So
coming from an events background, then making the switch to video because of COVID and obviously not having any work. Also, I noticed with a lot of the organizations I was working with, they made a big switch to streaming on Zoom. And I had to like make that big dive onto Zoom too, because they still wanted to do their events, but now they just wanted to do them on like, how do we do this? And now it's like Zoom only events and webinars and YouTube lives and this and that. But now the trend is like, now people are starting to get back, but then some people don't want to let go of the live stream option.
Events.
The hybrid events. So it's like
they're like the dragon. You don't want to touch them because they're so bad.
And no, like,
they're good, but they're bad because
there's such a tech complexity when it comes to hybrids events. And so now this whole past year since COVID's been technically kind of over as far as we know, as far as the restrictions, hybrid events has been like half of my life now. And it's like, it's such a level of like intensity now than what you would, I guess, pre-COVID live streaming was, right? So because would you say hybrid events now are different than, because in some ways what you used to do before COVID were types of hybrids events, but they were different, right? Because you have that experience.
I have a hot take on hybrid events.
Take it away. All yours.
So I used to, like, typically when we were doing events, it was one way You're watching what's happening in the room. You don't have to worry about back and forth audio. Now they're like, oh, well, this speaker is in California and we need to do this and they need to be able to hear us and we need to be able to hear them in the room, but also they need to be able to be seen on that screen and this and that. And people don't understand on our end. We're just like, okay, we have to figure out what now? Because every single time you set these up, they're different. Whether it's the audio coming in, the video. I have like over 1,000 feet, maybe like 1,500 feet of SDI because of the different asks that I've gotten. I've gotten asked to stream it out, but also have like 6 televisions out. And I'm like, you sure you want that? You really sure? Like, okay, like I'll do it, but like it's gonna cost you.
It's gonna per TV.
Per TV. But you're right, it is per TV. But people don't understand the ask of that. Like I understand on a event planner side, you're like, great, we can bring in these big guests and we can do these things, or like, you know, these people at home are going to be able to participate, or like even if it's like a graduation or something, like, you know, we can have our speaker in from wherever, or there's someone that's sick, or
the theory
whatever
is
it
simple.
is.
The theory is simple to explain, but the practice, the implementation, we had a recent event that was similar to that I was my team was taking care of, and it went from, can you shoot our talk? Then it went to, can you live stream our talk? Okay, and then obviously I had to adjust the invoice because I'm like, that's a whole like person slash table of equipment and cables and everything, right? Then it turned into, oh, and we're also gonna have a panelist on Zoom. So we're gonna have we have a TV already, so you just need to put them up. So I'm like, okay, now obviously audio is routed really different when you want audio going into Zoom and coming out, and to not create feedback
You need to
loops.
buffer
There's
that.
so many. You gotta make sure you have the right separation involved because they want to hear this and that, and then it was like it turned into multiple panelists. So it was a full on half panel, half on Zoom, half in person.
That has happened to me a number of times.
And it's like they're like thinking they're making the ask like so last second that it's almost like because, and I get it. They don't understand the tech behind it, but like it really does make us go through a ton of hoops.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I actually have a story about this.
Go for it.
I dropped a conference the night before the conference.
You were like, nope. Not.
I was like, we don't have a contract. You made me change the quote 6 times. I'm not coming tomorrow. Because basically what it is this is a client that I've worked with for 2 years. I did their last 2 conferences. So I understand how much of a mess their conference is. And like I say that with all of the love for these people because they're very nice people. The conference, you know, once it's going and it's fine. But essentially what they were asking for was video, audio, TVs, live stream, half the panelists there, half the panelists home, like all of these things, but like in a Times Square hotel. And I was like, okay, so that, like, you know, I'll make it work. We'll get a hotel room. But then, you know, they were like, all right, well now we have to pay for union, cut one of your people. And I was like, cut one of my people. Like, do you know how much it takes to run these things? The union people aren't going to know how to run these things because we were doing in-room audio, Zoom audio, all of these things.
Yeah.
Like, everything is a different system.
Yeah.
I needed
and you need
2
them all
boards.
to communicate correctly with each other.
I needed like 2 audio boards, like 3 or 4 computers, like switchers, all of this, and like a couple hundred feet of SDI.
And you need them
Cameras.
all to work together seamlessly.
Realistically, it should have been like a 5-6 person team. They were like, can you come with 2 people? Like, you know, and then I was like, all right, well, for all this, like these extra microphones that you now need, like, you know, can't, like, it'll be just a little more. And then they pushed back on that. They're like, we'll do it with 1 microphone. Just go with the lowest quote that you did. I was like, sorry guys, I can't.
You're just not going to get what you're asking for at that point. Yeah.
For me, it was more so that the delivery was going to be so messed up based off of their budget cuts that it wouldn't have been like justice to me, my other crew member, or them for us to come that next day.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going in there and because of so many last second changes, you know, you're pretty much down to the wire. So it's like, way above capacity.
Hmm.
It's like, how can you're not going to do them a favor by showing up and doing a
Like a
virtually,
third of the job that we
yeah,
would have done,
exactly.
because like, someone might listen to this and be like, oh, that's so horrible of you to pull out on this conference. But I know exactly what they did. They set up a camera and they brought everyone on via Zoom and they made it work.
Yeah.
But the way that they wanted to do it was going to be a problem for the house union people, was going to be a problem for us, was going to be a problem for the hotel, because we would have to get a couple £100 of gear into that hotel. Me
Yeah.
and my friend, two women, just like trying to get it into the hotel room. That wasn't going to fly. So there was a lot of things that were just building up.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that,
Which would lead to delays to their event
and 2 hours to set up.
Yep. And troubleshooting too. And, all it takes is one wire or one
All it
computer
takes is
to
the
just like
the
one
tech people from the hotel to forget to like hit on the Ethernet switch.
or unmute on Zoom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And it's like, because that's the thing, it's like, I had this conversation with my team too, and it's funny. It was like, it's not that, also, it's not that it's terribly complicated. It's that the fact that these setups have 20,000 little tiny steps that all have to be made sure or switch this way or switch that way, on, off, this and that, right? So it's like, I guess this, what it comes down to is managing expectations. When a client comes to talk to you about like, hey, this is what I want. I was like, great, that sounds great in theory.
Mhm.
But I think, like you said, it's changed now with these hybrid events, that it's like people have a certain level of expectation based on what they've seen happen now. That they don't have, though, the understanding of the the value and the work effort that is actually involved to making those things happen.
Mhm.
And they think it's like simple enough. It's like, oh, anyway, everybody's Zooming. Zoom is just Zoom, but it's
They assume that someone's going to show up with a camera and take room audio, and that's what they're going to get. But at least how I run it, and assuming by what I'm seeing in here, you guys run it like a broadcast setup. So you have like wires run, you have like clean audio, you have I'm not, depending on the thing, probably lighting. It
depending
depends.
on the thing.
It
Yeah, it
depends.
depends on the venue too.
It also depends if it's like a graduation or something, and it's
Yeah.
like, all right, you're all the way up there. Yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah, there's the stage lights.
Yeah, great, wonderful. But like there's all these factors and all these pieces that go into this, and that's why like I only take select clients for broadcasting, because I know all of the things that can go wrong, and it's very much like one of those things where you hire the guy that like when everything shuts down, he knows which switch to turn on and off, to turn it all back on. Like I would rather be valued in that way than take a million live streams that go bad. If that makes sense.
100% agree.
That's why I didn't really get into wedding live streams. Those are a mess.
Talk about pressure.
If you don't get it, you don't get it with those. And it's the same with graduations. But I feel like graduations, at least there's prep time. Whereas a wedding, it's like, all right, this is the ceremony area. You're good, right? Yeah. Internet's at like 1 meg, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there's no Wi-Fi here? What do you mean?
There's been a couple times where I get a phone call. Yeah, there's no Wi-Fi. Is that going to be an issue? And I'm like, well, first of all, we do hardline here. Like, that's the house that we live in. We make sure that there is a direct connection.
Yes.
But like I was doing a whole music festival, and they're like, yeah, we need you to stream on the beach. And I was like, okay. So like I got a live view unit and did it. But like the next time I got asked to stream on a beach, it was a surfboard competition in Long Beach. And I was like, okay, what do you guys need? And then they were like listing off all these things. And I was like, so what's the nearest like internet access that we can possibly like, get?
Use.
And they're like, we can't, like, you can't down there. I was like,
How do you
all
expect?
right, like, this is how much it is to rent these live view units, because they go up to satellite. And then the second that you say, hey, it's this much, people are like, oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
But
Can't do that.
But that's the reality of what they were trying to ask for.
Yes.
I mean, and then at that point, I mean, I've had those conversations with clients, because sometimes you have to tell them, it's like, I understand what you're trying to do, but given your budget and everything, recommend get a phone.
Yep.
And just, you have at least through there, it's a solid connection to your service provider,
Hmm.
and it's actually going to probably work out way better for you and less cumbersome than us trying to make it work. In reality, it's going to be more subpar.
Hmm.
Like we can deliver a certain level of quality, but we require
100%. And that's the
certain
correct way to
prerequisites.
to deal with it with a client. And that's kind of the conversation I had to have with like the Long Beach people. And that was with the people that I no longer came the next day. That was what I was talking to them on the phone about.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, no, it'll be fine." I'm like, "No, trust me, like, it's not going to be fine. It's going to be better if you guys have each of the panelists on, a computer at that point and then just put the computers on the TVs because at least you'll have one cohesive panel." So,
Well, actually, you could talk a little bit to that I think a lot of us dread dealing with client
oh, I
expectations.
dread that too.
I dread it too with a passion, but
I am
I
not a
think I
salesperson.
think it's such
Don't have
a
me do sales. I can sell myself, but I don't like
no.
money.
Exactly. That's my problem too. I'm like, yeah, I need other people around me that like, wait, we need money. Like, yeah, you're right.
Oh, no, I just need someone that's like, this is the price.
Yeah, exactly.
I just need that person because someone actually said I have too much creative empathy. I love that term. Thank you, Gina, for that term. But a creative
I relate to
empathy,
that so much.
because I'm like, I want to see you guys do well, and I want like this to come together, and I want them to be able to afford it so that they can continue working with me.
Yeah, and you're doing a project pretty much like you put part of your soul in it in some
I'm not a
place.
person that's gonna like half-ass a
Yeah,
project.
exactly.
It doesn't matter what the budget is. Like, like it might mean that I don't show up with the same gear that I would, but like, it's still gonna look good. It's still gonna be a good product.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm not going to like be like, all right, well, you can only afford $400 out of what it would be.
Yeah.
Okay, like, I'm not going to be that person that's just like, all right, so you're going to get like me holding half a camera sideways on a diagonal angle because I don't really care about what's happening. And like,
Yeah.
enjoy.
So, and that's a great point. Like, I think one thing is like you just said, like, I don't enjoy sales. I don't enjoy this. But at the same time, you do have a successful company and you do have to have these conversations. So, because I think a lot of people can really relate to that. And can you speak a little to how you've approached those conversations, either with when clients come to you with unrealistic expectations, or when you're having those like we all get the clients that are like, I want it all for this much, you know, and so how do you navigate those conversations?
Oh, this is quite a topic, Victor. Um, So I've never really liked being like a salesperson. I always was in a producer role in all of the things that I was doing. Even when I was working in television, I was on the production management team. So obviously, we both know that, doing these shoots costs money, whether it's money put into labor or money put into gear or money put in for the amount of time. So what I typically do is I try and calculate it based off of like time, what I'm bringing, all of those things to come up with the initial budget. And, typically corporate is more likely to have the budget than, say, like a music artist. So the way that I approach that is I try and give realistic expectations on what they're getting and where we're going with the project so that both sides understand and you can make those decisions together rather than being like, $6,000. $6,000. And then being like, what does $6,000 mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then, on the artist side, I feel like, I work with a lot of musicians and like, they're local musicians. They're not cover bands. They're not people doing those type of things. They're doing original music and they may or may not have a budget for certain things. So, for that situation, I'm like, all right, like realistically, like what can you do that is going to be comfortable for you? And we'll figure out what we can do within that number. So, I try and work with
Make
people.
it a conversation kind of.
Yes, because if you have a conversation with someone, like I said, I have like a lot of creative empathy. I'm not going to do a project for like nothing, but at least if you can come together on something, it's something that they're going to recommend you to other people as well as continue to work with you because you're not going, oh, you can't do $800. Sorry, can't help you.
Yeah. No,
So
of course.
that's kind of how I handle those things. But I need someone that's like $800.
No, but I love that. I love that because it's like you said, it's the empathy, it's the helping because at the end of the day, I feel like we're here to solve a problem for
Hmm.
most clients come to us. That's why you would
Yeah.
usually need, especially in a commercial senses, you're either looking for more ROI or you're
Hmm.
looking for getting more awareness, or a music artist especially is like
Oh
about
yeah, you
awareness, about
continue
getting
to
the
need.
music out there. So it's like I see it very much as like I'm serving people.
Yes.
And so I really relate to that. It's like it's an empathetic conversation. It's like, okay, I get it. Trust me. We know too. It's
Hmm.
like money's tight out there.
The other part of that though is
Yeah.
every project that I've ever done for under budget turns into a problem.
Hmm.
So I've like had to learn some lessons out
But those
there.
boundaries, though.
That was something that I had to learn a lot of because, someone comes to you and is like, I only have $200. Like, can you cover this thing?
Mm.
That's always the person that kind of has like 15 rounds of revisions and wants the everything. And you can't
Nitpicks every last step.
continue on that if you're going to be trying to, make enough money to pay the rent or make enough money to like continue to grow. So you can't be doing those $200 projects like if well, I mean, not saying that don't do $200 projects, but
There's a
like
time and place. There's a time and place
yes,
for sure.
and like I've had to learn those lessons the hard way over 10 years because I was severely undercharging at the beginning because at that point video wasn't really valued.
Hmm.
Like it was, but it wasn't. People were like, nah, like why would I hire someone to do this?
Yeah.
But then, video when you're hiring someone also comes with an expertise of like, we've done things like this before. We can guide you. We can like help you develop what you're trying to do. Like whether I approach everything very psychologically. So, I make sure that I understand what they're trying to do and then like, guide them
Hmm.
to make sure that they hit their marks. And I'm on a tangent, but basically like
No, no, but it
what
all it
were we
does fit.
talking about? That's the first one that I really got you to laugh. But it's one of those things where we bring more to the table, and when you're doing it for less, it's more taking away from you than doing a justice for them.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten into situations where like I've had to have my editor edit something that I was like, oh, I'll give them a deal, I'll edit it myself, and then
Mm.
I end up being at like a $200 loss because he didn't have background on it and then he put it together but he had no idea on the event, and then I was like sitting there like I can't give them this and I had to do it anyway. So like
Yeah.
it's a disservice to us, but it's also a disservice to
Service to
them.
them. No, 100%. I agree with you. I mean, I had, it's funny, I had the same struggles too, 100%. And I had it in the audio world too. And then, but once now in the past few years, I'm my family now with my wife and this and that. And it's like really trying to build up, your time is finite. And, as I'm trying to build my company, it's like I got other people I want to make sure we're all able to rise. And it's
Hmm.
like,
This is
so
why we get along.
yeah. So I was like, I've learned that, like, okay, if I ever want to, like, actually, be, because I can't be working like when I used to work 5 jobs just to stay afloat. I'm like, how am I making the same amount of money as someone who works like 6 hours a week? At some points it's like, and I'm working like 100. Like, this is insane. But I was gonna say, it's like I've learned to now have those conversations where it's like, okay, so, and I'm just like, honestly, I don't. It doesn't make sense for us to go. I gave myself minimums. That's kind of like I set up in my head for certain things to under this, and I understand the budget, I understand the price. I think for what you're looking for, just because of the value of what we would just, the fact that we're walking in the door with a set of value of gear, you know it doesn't make sense for us to do this. And based on your ideas, you can go for with person A, person B. I'll try to reference someone else who I know is just
I
getting
did the same
started,
thing.
you know and if not, then I just say, or maybe look around for, you want a freelancer, not a company, because they'll be able to still give you what you want, but at your budget. And as you grow, maybe we could revisit the conversation, because it's like it's a disservice to you because we're just not able to execute what you're trying to get with our capabilities. And so
Hmm.
we don't want to you don't want to do that because it's also, then you spread yourself thin. I
Oh
like,
yeah,
I
you
agree.
just heard me say that
Yeah,
I
like
like.
so many of those little projects, it's like it's ironic that the $300 project ends up being the 40-hour project
Mhm.
versus the 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 3 grand project that's only a 10-hour gig.
I would rather do a promotional project at that point.
Yeah.
Every so often, especially when I want to test gear, I'll
Oh
I'll
yeah. Do a little
reach out to
promo.
someone, and it's usually someone that I've worked with in the past or something like
Yeah.
that that might not be looking to a project right now, but like,
Yeah.
it would be a mutually beneficial thing. So I'm like, "Hey, let's do this thing. Come to the studio. I need to test out my wide angle lens. Let's do a thing." I at that point, like, they don't have that expectation of like, I paid you, like, whatever. Like, if you take a little bit longer, or you
Yeah.
have to do a little extra work onto it because, like, new piece of gear. I would rather do a promotional project than a micro budget project. And
Yes.
I actually, you don't know this, I helped build an e-commerce studio. You do know this.
I do know
You
this.
do know this.
I do know this.
They were
Okay.
trying to do micro budget, and they
Yes.
wanted to do full production micro budget, including scripting, directing, production assistant, videographer, and then send everything to the Philippines to edit.
Oh.
But it was like a drop your information in the form and we'll take care of it type deal. So it was
Okay.
like definitely like a volume play,
Yeah.
but they didn't have the volume to do a volume play. So it was a mess every single step through, and took like 4 years of my life. But I built that all up, and I like budgeted it, and I figured it
Yeah.
all out, and like it killed me to like do, because this was the second ecom project that I had worked on, and it just, you can't do it for cheap. I think that the budget per episode, not episode, per ad was like only like $150.
Ooh.
But like, I would have the crew come in for 4 hours minimum and things like that.
Ooh.
So at least,
Yeah.
they were making more than they would make at a desk job.
But
But like, they were supposed to be scaling up to like 8 hours, and then, 8 hours isn't so bad, and like all of that. But I was telling the guy, I was like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. At a certain point I left. I was like in charge, and I like left it to the other person. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's not going to work in this format. And then it did end up going under. Shocker, right? Like, it's just,
well, that's like the other thing. I mean, I feel like we do our best to educate the client.
that's my mantra too. I'm like, I want you to understand what we're doing. So like, when that whole thing happened, I was like, like, there's just so many problems that are going to happen.
And I think that's like honestly like a real power too of like us. The fact that we're not salesy. Like I think people think like, oh, the only way you make it is being a salesy extroverted person. But the fact that neither you or me are that, but we're empathetic. We have a conversation and we're genuine. We want to help everybody if we can. But I think clients resonate with that so much more. If you like, at least, you're always going to get that one nightmare that
Oh, yeah.
doesn't listen or whatever. But I'd say more often than not, they'll understand. You can resonate with them. You either find an agreement or at least you don't do them that disservice by misleading them down. So tell me, did you have a particular vision when you went off on your own
No.
for where you were going? No,
No.
not at all. You were just like, okay,
I
here we
was
go.
like, I don't want to keep going into Manhattan. I was making more on the weekends than I was at my desk job. And like, they were having me sit there and watch Netflix because they didn't actually have stuff for me to do. So I was commuting into Manhattan to sit and watch Netflix. And I was like, this is horrible. But I had no idea. I was like, I'm just going to get some clients and I'm going to make it work. Like, my parents were helping me with rent at that time, like not fully, but like, to enough of a degree, because my brother was living at the apartment with me, that I was like, all right, I can take this leap. Not everyone has like any backing to take a leap. But I ended up being very lucky and getting a bunch of subcontract work at the beginning. So the subcontract work turned into me making
Did that
enough
come
money.
from like new networker, or did that come from prior relationships, referrals, and contacts?
Both.
Okay, it was a mix.
The guy I ran into, I took my first client, which was a real estate company in Brooklyn, very very Russian real estate company. They wanted me to
Duh.
explain what I was doing, and then they were trying to get their front desk lady to do it and cut me out. But while I was there, the guy that I mentioned earlier, Brad from Metro Media Broadcasting, he came to do a Yelp video for the owner's son, who was also my client, and he was a lawyer upstairs. So I got to know Brad, and he was based in Philly, and he was shooting all of these things on Long Island and in Manhattan and like, the close part of Connecticut and just upstate. So I ended up being the local shooter for Yelp, Groupon, Zillow, Doctor Multimedia, and a bunch of other places.
Okay, yeah, this was yeah.
So I got in with a bunch of those type of companies, and like I still have a couple of those companies that reach out to me. Not those
Yeah.
ones that those died,
Well,
but
naturally,
national
come and go.
companies that hire local shooters. So I even have one right now that I'm working with that I send my subcontractors out to. I barely do them just because I want to keep them working and keep them
Yeah.
in a sustainable spot where they can keep freelancing. So I send Sean, I send Mike, I send whoever so that they can, have
Yeah.
money for
Well,
things.
and that's the great thing too. It's also like you've going back a little bit, the freeing yourself up from those like lower projects that don't serve you or serve them. You're doing these bigger projects now. And thus, that gives you the time so you can do those pro bono passion projects, I would say. Like, hey, I vibe with what you're trying to do. I understand that money's an issue. So, you know what? Let's collaborate a little more on it and let's do it.
Sometimes
Because,
people get scared of that.
yeah, because then they're like, oh, wait, is there something else
I'm
tied
like,
to this?
I'm like, no, I just want to do something.
Yeah,
Come
you're
over.
like, I have the time.
Yeah.
But also, buffering.
I saw it. I
Yeah.
was like, where's he going?
Yeah, I had it. I had a great point. Sometimes you have a great question and then it just goes fly. Bye bye.
That happens to me all the time, squirrel.
Yeah, ADHD, man.
Yeah, we all have it. If you're
Yeah.
in the video industry, most likely like you have ADD or ADHD. That's something that I've noticed very much so. And I'm
I
pretty
think
sure.
creative people in general and like that's a trend I've
Are we going
noticed.
on this tangent? Because I have so much to say on this tangent.
Go for it. Go for it. I'll think of my question eventually.
Well, you can buffer while I talk about how I'm pretty sure that ADHD is the reason why I do my job so well, at least in events. Because
Oh man, I could talk about that too.
well, the abbreviated version is I have so many things running at once that I see something happening over here in my peripherals that I don't miss it because I'm already like processing like 6 things and I'm like, oh, this is happening over here. That's my short version.
I 100% agree with that sentiment. I 100% agree because I'm usually, it's funny, that's where I feel the most calm when 1,000 things are happening at once. Because at that point, it's like, I think it's enough things that my brain is like, oh, great, stimulation. And it's like, okay, so this is happening, this is happening, this happened, this happened. I think that's why I also like music, like drumming.
I agree.
Because
Not that I'm not a drummer. I play percussion on my steering wheel. Yeah.
but also like when you're a musician, you're thinking non-linear.
Especially in a jam session because you're
communicating on so many different levels. You're communicating with everybody. You're also thinking what's coming next. You're thinking what just happened, because sometimes you're like, oh, you're paying attention to your own body. You're paying attention to everybody else, how it's reacting. You're reacting in real time. You're also distracted by the scroll that you see over there. And then you're wondering why the crowd's guy, is he looking at me? Or is it like, and so it's like your brain goes on like 20 different levels.
I have a question for you about this. Does that impact the way you shoot music? Because it totally impacts me.
Okay.
Like I shoot as though I am a part of the jam because I can read people very well. I've been people watching for 10 years.
Yes.
So I understand the construction of music. So like I'm able to guess what's going to happen next. And I was wondering if that's something that you as a musician relate to. I flipped this on you.
Yes, actually, that's a fantastic question. Thank you for welcoming me to your podcast. No, but yes, I would say so, especially when it comes to music, because it's like I kind of know the band communication. So coming from a live sound too, I've always approached it as that additional member of the band because I'm reacting like, oh, that guy's about to take a guitar solo, so I'm bringing him up. It's like, oh, that person's doing the lead vocal now, so I'm fitting him in and doing that. So also with video,
Oh,
you're
so you're
like,
a good live engineer.
you're thank you. Yeah, I'm actively mixing.
Yes, you're not the
I
set
don't.
the levels and walk away guy.
No, I get bored.
Okay, now I know that I could call you.
Thank you. Yes, yes, anytime. But yeah, and the same with video, it's like you see the internal communication, you see the band talking about it. I know when someone messed up. I know because you don't hear it. The bands usually most bands on stage will be at a level where you won't hear the mistake, but you can tell a mistake happened just by the
Oh
faces.
yeah.
That the internal communication starts to happen. You see light bulbs go off, you see the backstage people running around. So it's like it's
You
just
see
fun
the
to catch
person
those
slip the
moments.
water on stage.
Yeah, or like swapping mics real quick because
Hmm.
something's going out, or
My favorite's
the
when
hand
someone breaks
signals.
the chord, I mean the string on their guitar, but you don't find out till the end of the song while they're holding it like this, going, I need a second.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And just because of so many experiences from my old band, I've seen there's funny pictures of one concert. This is a real tangent. We'll get back to video, I swear.
This is a
Uh
great tangent, though.
it
As
is.
I shoot music all the time.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get back, I promise. No, but like he his strap broke. So he ended up full on flamingo stance for the end of the song, just holding up his guitar so
I've
he
seen
could.
someone go to the floor for that.
Yeah, and people are like, yeah, and he's like, I'm panicking. The strap, it's gone. And I also had a time where my drum set, like, they put us on a hardwood floor with no carpeting.
So you were sliding.
So my kick drum was sliding and turning, and my I'm like trying to get someone's attention. My foot's starting to turn with it. I'm like we're going, and then singer turns around. He's like it's like catching the cymbal. He's still singing,
Hmm.
and it's like it's fun though. It's you go through those moments. But yeah, I would say definitely that mentality has affected how I look at video as a musician, and it's great because it's like you have such a love and you do a lot of music stuff. You actually did a great project recently. It was like your little pet project where you filmed the whole concert series online. You streamed that too, right? Or
Which
was
project are we talking
the
about?
one you did at 89 North, the
Oh,
whole
Road to
competition?
Statfest. Yes.
Yes, that was your baby.
That was my baby. So basically,
Well,
for the
tell
viewers at home,
yes.
I pitched a competition show to Statfest because they tended to book the same acts, and I was like, let's get some new people in here. We'll have a contest. We'll bring in original artists, and we'll have them battle it out for one, a music video from me. Two, one of the judges threw in recording at a music studio at wow, my brain turned off. Westfall Recordings Company.
I relate.
And then they would get a what's it called? A social media campaign and a spot opening up Statfest, opening up the main stage at Statfest. So we had people compete, and it was a 7-episode series, and it was like full half-hour long episodes where people came on, they competed, there was interviews, the whole 9 yards. And basically for me, I just wanted to help people. Someone brought up to me that I was very ballsy for putting together a competition show, and it did not register because I was like, oh, but there's so many people that are going to see these people, and they're going to get exposure like to all these different audiences because we're having so many different people and this. And I was on that wavelength, and
Yeah,
I was
I
like, oh
totally buy
no,
it.
people are going to be upset. But the funny thing is, like, the people that we casted, I would say casting is one of my strongest standpoints.
Mm.
The people that went to at least the semifinals at minimum all started taking off this year. So, like, not that I attribute it to that, but I feel like we brought together a community of people, and,
Mm-hmm.
it did give people somewhere to show what they do. And also it gave them a professional recording of what they were doing to book shows or send out or post online. So it was something that I put together
This
in
is
hopes to.
huge for a local band.
Oh yeah.
Huge.
Like the winner was LA Crayuse, Lorianne Crayuse,
Mhm.
and her band, and I shoot for them all the time.
Yeah.
I sent her like a whole thing. They did Rockwood.
And I know
Like, the
Anthony
other
from
day.
Westfall, and Westfall is a great studio out by one.
He was one of the judges,
Oh, Anthony?
as well as
Great.
Maria Schuring. So she does like Alive After 5 in Patchogue.
Oh, great, great, great.
So we had a lot of different people. We had a bunch of guest judges, but we also did this on a micro budget. I actually ended up paying out of pocket for this because I didn't want my crew to go without
Yeah, I was gonna
pay.
ask because I know this was like you literally produced
I
this.
paid for it.
Yeah, you produced it. Like you're the executive producer.
Yeah, like
essentially.
even if you asked like Steve, like he was like, yeah, no, that was your project.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I very much appreciate him coming in and helping with that, and like, you know, he was the other producer, like the co-producer on that. But I was the one doing all the pre-pro. I was the one pushing the day. Like I still have like people that were like on the show that were like, the first time I met you, you were yelling on a bullhorn, and we saw all the lights and this and that, and it was like amazing and this and that. Like, you know, if I was doing a project, I'd hire you, and I'm like, do a project, hire me, let's do stuff. I like doing stuff.
Do
but
all
yeah,
the stuff.
It was also for me. It was like I was working in reality TV. I did game shows. And
Okay.
I was like the low man on the totem pole when I was there. And I was like, I can do this. Like, I'm already doing everyone else's jobs. They're like eating weed cookies and on skateboard websites. Like, I'm already doing their jobs. I can do it.
They live at Crafty.
Yes. And then, you know, that was like the moment that I was like, that was where like all the imposter syndrome went out like the window. Like, you know how you're always like, okay, like I'm doing it, but like, can I be doing this better?
That's
And
great.
like all of
You
that.
think that was because like you really were in your passion?
The final episode, if anyone watches the final episode, that was like what I had in my head when I pitched the show. And I was very happy about it. And it was like poetic and it was great. And like, you know, everyone came together and everyone was like, you know, if this person wins, like, you know, I'm just happy to be here. Like, it was such a good vibe. And like, I remember like bawling at my house when I saw the final cut. And then like, I texted everyone. I was like, thank you for doing this. Are you the one that said that you guys should do this song? Thank you so much, Alex. This and that, whatever. Like I was a mess. But it was like
That's
great.
amazing.
And then my friend actually, the one that won, Lorianne, she throws Industry Killed the Radio Star. And it just so happened that it coincided with the finale night, and then 3 of the artists I did music videos for all were on the same night. I didn't hear it. So we watched the finale. Everyone cheered for her because she was the host of the event. And then, you know, the people that were actually in the thing that night, they were on the show, 2 of them. And it was just like a big culmination of just everyone being creative together.
That's awesome.
That's a tangent.
I mean, no, but it's because it's beautiful because it's like also like you took out the limb and you went and you did your dream project per se, you know, and you really went all for it, all in, and it's a beautiful thing when it does come to fruition, you know. I mean, I've seen
I
it.
pushed.
Oh, I believe you. I mean, I got to witness it with my start into video with my friend Marcus, who he jumped in. He did his feature length film, and I was lucky enough to be the DP for it. And but like
That's
that
a
was really,
commitment.
but that was really his baby, and he executive produced it. And he was the lead, and he was the writer and the director, and you know we had a great crew, and he really casted it well, and you know, and we made it happen. And thankfully for him, the film got an award at a film festival. So it was just great to see it all come together and actually come together because, and I love him as a director and as a friend, and he you know, it's nice to see because he really did it with no expectation of any accolades. So it was just nice to see that, and I'm sure the same emotions, you know, you relate in the sense of like seeing that final cut, like
Oh yeah.
it happened, it did,
It
it's done.
happened, and like, you know, I don't know if people thought I had any ulterior motives like going into it. I just wanted to help people, and like,
Yeah.
you know, at that point I was already doing stuff with Statfest. Like I did all of their like live streams, and I did all of their like pre-recorded multicam performances and all of those things. So I was like, all right,
So
let's do the big one. Let's do
there,
the game show.
nice. No, and like I said, I've seen it. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is great. I wish I
Thank
was
you.
on this game show. But now moving forward into the future, what do you see? Where do you see Celia Warner Productions going? Do you have a vision that you're kind of heading towards, or like, what's the future look like for Celia?
So I'm in like a transitional period right now because I'm at a point where, I haven't been having to worry about like advertising. I don't advertise. Like I post on social media, but like I don't actively advertise. I've never had to. It's always been word of mouth, and that's an
Mm-hmm.
amazing thing, and also like, I don't take that for granted. But I think the next step, like I know the next step is going to be scaling. I just brought on an associate producer that, is like exclusively working with me. And I have like my freelancers, but my goal is not so much a business goal, but it's a personal goal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to scale. So by the time that I am growing a family, I don't have to be at everything.
Yes.
So that involved making my studio. And I'm now trying to put together packages, whether it's for music artists or other, so that I can train people to do those in the studio in the style as I would, so that, I can duplicate myself or I can be in
Yes.
multiple places.
Duplication.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Delegation. Yeah.
that, and also learning to loosen the reins on editing and pre-pro, because like, as you know, like you can't do everything. I've tried to do everything many a time, and I've also tripped and taken things back and regretted it.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the areas that I'm working on right now. That's really what's going on, and I'm trying to push it that way.
Do you see yourself niching down into like exclusively music or broadcasting or just your studio work, or do you see yourself kind of with the same package still?
There's things I won't do.
Granted.
There's things I won't do anymore. One of them being weddings. They paid a lot of bills, but they also caused a lot of stress. But I don't think I would niche down per se.
Yeah.
Because I have a love of corporate video. That's one of my favorite things to do. I did that this morning. But I also love working with musicians because I thrive off of working with people that are passionate about what they're doing. It doesn't really matter what they're doing.
Artists, musicians, I get it. I'm with you.
I'm one of those people that if you're giving me good energy, like it's going to fuel me to do a better job on your project. Like, not that I'm going to do a bad job without that, but I want that synergy so that we're both putting the effort in so that what we create together is going to be a better quality and higher quality thing, so that, when people see that, they're like, oh, wow, like this is amazing. Like the reaction of like, oh, wow, like I've had people, like, it's not so fun when you have a client like tell you that via text when you send it to them via Dropbox. But like I've had a couple times where I show people things in person, and like I've had people cry. I just want to impact people in a positive way. Like, so that's more of my drive, and I want to be able to give that to people. And, my niche is kind of like moving towards like, the local artists right now. But like, some of these people might not always be local artists. And, I'm willing to see where all of that goes. I don't really know a direction that I'm going to go, but I just know that I'm going to follow that.
Yeah. You're going to stay authentic. And I love it.
Yes.
Yes. No, I love it. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything like, as we've gone through all these topics, with any new filmmakers that are probably watching this, thinking it's like, it's like they are freelancing right now, but now they're thinking maybe it's like, oh, well, maybe the next step is start a production company, this or that, or really like, take that next level. Is like there anything that piece of wisdom that you want to pass on to our audience?
I'm thinking. I would say probably that, you can't do everything yourself. I have struggled with that for years because I was a control freak for a very long time. And, I wanted my hands on every single aspect of something, like to
because
the point.
You cared.
Because I cared. Like, it's not because I don't trust people, but I had to learn how to trust people. And that also led into figuring out, other videographers are not necessarily competition. You got to work with people, you got to trust people, you got to have people that you can lean on and like, pass work off to, or like whatever it may be, so that you all can grow. Because let's face it, in this day and age, like there's so much work out there. Like if you can find it, like, the work that you're getting is not the work I'm getting. But if I have an excess of work and you have less work, it's going to help you for me to give you the work.
Exactly. And vice versa.
Exactly.
Because people tend to return the favor.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you need to learn to trust people and trust that not everyone's looking to screw you over.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I inherently think people are good. It's just sometimes people are different too, and so they carry their own bad habits.
Mhm.
But if you come from the right frame, I truly believe life gives you what you give it.
I agree.
You know.
Especially like one of the things that I've been working on, and this might be another piece of advice, is using people for the right purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have a couple people that work with me that are really good front facing client people, but I have some people that are like very good at just straight doing camera. If you take those two people together, you have a really good producer and you have a really good camera guy. But if you send one of them, you might not get the same thing back. So it's utilizing people's
Yeah.
strengths as well.
Getting to know people too.
Mhm.
That's a big part. It's like understanding, getting to know them, trying them out in the field with you, so you get that sense.
Mhm.
Because, like you said, there's some people that are like, I can trust as a lead, like a team lead. Like you're good under pressure and you're good with the client, and then there's certain people it's like you're technically great, not
Mhm.
so great under pressure, or making
Decision making.
decision making on the spot, stuff like that. So it's like, okay, understand now that you're best utilized when you have someone making the decisions, guiding, and you're great technically. So that's, yeah, understand, taking that step to understand like everyone's a puzzle piece, and you just have a puzzle, and it's like you can't build a puzzle with just one piece, and you're
Yeah, it's funny because that's a great analogy. And I was at the shoot I was at earlier. The guy, he owns like a workshop, and he's like, everyone here is a tool, and you have to figure out the best way to use these tools. And I'm like, oh my god, that's such a great analogy. So now I have two puzzles
there,
and tools.
there you go. Yeah, right. You wouldn't use the screwdriver to put in the nail,
No,
right?
I mean you can, but it's not gonna work so well.
You're gonna hit your finger a lot. It's gonna hurt. But no, but you've been great, honestly. Like this has been a fun conversation. And so, where can the people find you?
So you can find me on most social media under Celia Werner. On Instagram, it's CW Productions because Instagram decided to take away my Instagram under Celia Werner Productions. But you can find me there. You can Google me. I'll be one of the first websites, probably the first one because my name's not that common. And yeah.
Great, great. And you can always find us at Vision Maker Productions. You can Google that, find us on our website or on social media. On Instagram, we are VM Productions NY. And yeah, again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I had a
having
great
us.
time.
This is Vision Maker Productions podcast, Vision Maker podcast. There we go. And catch you all next time.